Alright, welcome back to my channel guys, and this is episode 3 of the series video on how to fly the Boeing 737-800. So in this video we're going to be programming the FMC or the flight management computer in the cockpit, and for that, just to get started, you do need to have a flight planner. And again, this video is, as I mentioned, is optional. You don't need to program the FMC to fly the aircraft. You can always fly it manually and enjoy the views. If you truly want to be the 100% pilot, this video is for you then. So this is a very short flight, right? So this is just like 20-30 minutes. So this app I'm using is called the XPFlightPlanner. And this is a paid software. If it's the free version, the demo version, it only allows you to create 5 waypoints. So the waypoints are just this pink dots and scattered all around the world. There's like tens of thousands around the world. Not sure the exact number. And this database is available in Explain, pre-installed. So this app, it allows you to create the flight plan we need. And if you have more than 5 waypoints, which in this case, I think I don't have that case. So if it's a small flight, it should be fine. You don't have to buy the software, and you will see the waypoints right here. And this is the main line we need to program our FMC. But if you're planning a long flight with more than 5 waypoints, then you need to buy the software. So I do have it purchased, and I think it's about $20, so 24 Canadian. If you don't want to buy this, there's one more website. I'll link it in the description below. It's SimBrief and Navigraph, and they have the same features, and all you have to do is create an account. That's all, I think. And I'm not personally used them, so I'm just going to go over through XPFlightPlanner. Right, so to create a new plan, you want to open the route generator. This is the 5th button right here. And you want to select the departure. As I mentioned, this flight, the series, or rather, I should say, is OBBI, that's Bahrain International, to OTHH, that's Doha Hamad International Airport. And you can select your aircraft type, so that's 737-800. We are actually going to fly way lower, right? We don't want to climb that high. I'm going to fly at flight level 80, that's 8,000 feet, at the maximum speed possible. You don't need to set it up here. We can set it up in the FMC later. And we don't have any passengers, just the fuel. So I'm just going to put the load factor to 0. SID output. So Bahrain does not have a SID. That's the standard instrument departure. It doesn't have a SID. I believe it does have a star though. But anyways, OTHH Hamad International does have a lot of stars, and it recommends we use the HAYA star. Star means standard terminal arrival routing. We're going to talk through this as we go ahead in the video. Just press generate and it's going to create flight plan. So you can see after HAYA, it's like straight to the runway, which is not what I want. So I do usually add an extra point. Let's say I want to use runway 16 left from this side. So it's following the compass, right? So this is 16 left, 16 right. But from this side, it's going to be 34 left and 34 right. So I'm going to use runway 16 right in my case. So I'm going to use the goal C waypoint. I'm going to add that to the route. Goal C is added from HAYA. So this is what I had saved initially. I'm just going to load that again. So take off from Bahrain. Going to go directly to Jexim, GEXIM. And you can actually read it out here in the routing section. OBBI direct to Jexim, and we're gonna use the N318 highway. So this is the airways, or you could say the highways of the air. It goes all the way just a few hundred miles off the coast of UAE. But it starts, I think, way into Saudi Arabia. Yeah, it starts just outside Dammam. But yeah, we're going to use that highway for a short while until HAYA waypoint. And we're going to make a right turn down to Goal C and intercept the ILS for runway 16 right. So that's the plan. So over here you can see what's the estimated time and the fuel that's needed for the trip, how much contingency fuel you need, what's the alternate if you have an alternate destination, what's the final reserve fuel. When you start eating into this reserve fuel, you have to declare an emergency. And then the extra reserve Just pilot discretion. If you want to add more fuel, you can tack on that. When you add all of them together, that gives you a block fuel for the whole journey. So you should have this much amount of fuel in your fuel tanks when you leave the airport. The amount of fuel you're gonna have is 1 hour 30 minutes of flight time, which is way more than enough to cover this whole journey. Next, we have the weights. We said we don't have any passenger, we don't have any payloads. It's just a zero flight weight of 41 tons. And then we have the takeoff weight and the landing weight at Bahrain and Doha respectively, and you can see it decreases as it should be. We have the maximum takeoff and landing weights as well for the aircraft. And then we have flight log. This shows the latitude and longitude of each point where it should be. The distance covered, incoming magnetic track, the remaining distance, the indicated airspeed and the ground speed at that time, and the outside air temperature at that time. So 14.9 degrees. It's because we're not climbing to such high altitudes, right? It's just a short trip. And then we have the fuel burn, predicted fuel burn, and the end of flight, the fuel burns. So we can check how much consumption is happening through this. And this is the main part we need of the flight plan. Jot it down somewhere. I'll save that. I think it has an option to also export it to explain, but I'm going to show you how to do it manually first. And we're going to go back to explain and go down to our FMC. This is the CDU. It should say nav data out of date, because if we go to status, this has expired. That's a valid message. You just want to clear that. It should be fine to use outdated nav data. But if you do want an up-to-date version, there are paid alternatives to that. And I believe the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, they have the nav data for free for only US coverage. But if you want somewhere else, there are paid versions. Let's go back to our index, and it gives you an overview of what you can do from this menu. There's few missing here. There should be like the performance, takeoff performance calculators also, but that's not there on the default. Explain. And takeoff performance, you can also set the cost index, and that actually allows you to program the computers not to push the engine too hard, like at a degraded performance mode, so that you don't spend too much fuel. We just want to conserve the maximum fuel as possible. You could use the maximum length of the runway as possible, so we don't need like Tuga power to take off. So that calculation is also done by the takeoff performance, but that's not here in the default, so we're just going to use the full power. So the first thing you want to do is go to database, and you can enter OBBI. You can use the keypad that's provided here, or one thing you can do is click this square brackets, and this is what we call the scratch pad. Now your keyboard is now focused into the CDU, so whatever I type in my keyboard is gonna go into the scratch pad. Let's say you have a landing gear toggle for G or brakes for B in your keyboard. You press that, you see you're typing into the scratch pad. So just be careful if it's just like flashing like that. That means you're typing it here. You're not controlling the aircraft anymore. So I'm just going to clear that. Use the normal keyboard here. OBBI. And I'm going to press ident. It's going to give you the name of the airport, Bahrain International, location where you are, the longest runway in feet or meters, 3.9 kilometers, that's good, and the elevation, and the pilot waypoint list. So you could define a waypoint here. So we can go back to index and start with the route menu. And this is the company route list. You can see I have something saved here. OBBI to OTTH, that's the exact thing we're going to do, but for you most likely there's nothing saved, and I'm going to show you how to save that too later. We're going to create it from scratch. So we're going to click flight plan. Once again, we were in index, we went to route menu, and we went to company route list, and then we went to our flight plan. But instead of doing all that, you can just go directly and press this button, flight plan, and reach flight plan. So you could skip all of that and come to flight plan and enter your origin. That's OBBI right here. So OBBI comes up on your flight navigation display, and let's click OTTH. That's our destination ICAO code, and it says the distance should be 80 nautical miles, which does make sense, right? That's the distance to the airport we want to go to. Company route, that's the same one we saw earlier, so we're not going to use a saved one. We're going to make our own first. We could leave the origin runway now. I'm going to show you how to enter that. For now, let's use this option, flight number, and actually assign a flight number. So I'm going to call my aircraft QA001, and you can see this execute button coming up. So each time you make a change, in order to save it or execute it, you want to press execute. But if you don't want to save that, you made a mistake putting it here, you want to press cancel mode. Now, to start importing your flight plan, you want to use this wire and to section right here and the fourth line. You want to go back to your flight plan and see what's your first waypoint. So in our case, that was Jekshim, as we mentioned, this one right here. Jekshim is our first waypoint, and we're not using any SIDs in this case. So we're going to type in GEXIM. Let's double check. So yeah, that's the spelling. One time I put, I think it was Jekshim, and that's a completely different waypoint. That's like thousands of miles away. When you enter your first waypoint, it shows a yellow line asking you for you to confirm whether you want the change. So you can use this knob on the bottom right to zoom out. This is zooming in, so I'm turn it clockwise to zoom out. And you can see this is like way far away. So I'm going to put it in the video like where this Jekshim waypoint is, but this is way too far away. So you can immediately know that something is wrong. Let's not press execute. Let's cancel that and actually type the correct one this time. That's GEXIM. That's the first one, right? Right there. Okay, now if I zoom in, Jekshim is very close, right there. So we oriented in such a way like this is north this way. So that's Jekshim, which makes sense here. We're going to execute that. And now you notice it's actually pink in color. So once you have your first waypoint, we're going to keep going. And this doesn't end here. You just want to press next page and keep entering that. So our next waypoint is actually Haya. And that's on this airway. So it's not direct, it's the airway. So you want to enter the airway first. N318. And you see there's a discontinuity. If you see vectors or discontinuity, that's bad. That actually breaks your flight plan. So if I zoom out, it doesn't know where to go after this. I take the airway N318. I take it, but you need to provide the end waypoint. So that's Haya in our case. And vectors, it's kind of like discontinuity, but if you do see a vector here, that means it's on purpose. The computer is telling you that it's going to end here, and from here onwards, you need vectors to the destination or runway you're following. So you need ATC vectors from then on. So that's the end of the flight plan. But it is a broken flight plan, either way. So when you see this, try to fix it. So in this case, it's pretty obvious that we didn't set the last point. We want to use Haya. And the discontinuity disappeared, and we see Haya coming up here. Actually, I'm going to remove the waypoint so that you can actually clearly see it. And it also took care of the Lubet waypoint, if you see here. And I can't see it. So how do I actually fix that? Even with the zoom, I can't see it clearly. Or if I zoom out, it's too much. So to fix that, you can go to legs and you want to change this to flight plan. The default is map. You just want to go to flight plan. And now using flight plan, this is always oriented to the north. Now you can zoom in and there'll be a new key here, step. So you can step through and actually check your flight plan. It also took care of Lubet. It added that. I didn't add that, but it took care. You can verify in the planner, Lubet does fall under the N318 highway. Next page. After Haya, it's direct to Goal C. So I'm going to type in Goal C. And I'm going to press it here. So if you press it here, that means it's direct. Assume it's direct. And the left side is always the airways, and the right side is always the waypoints. So this was an airway, and this is not an airway. It's going to go direct to Goal C. and execute that. So now for your departure and your arrival, you don't need to put them in the flight plan. You just need to specify your first point and you go until your second last point. And what we are essentially doing is actually figuring out the LNAV, so which will be used for the autopilot video in the next episode. Our LNAV is not quite yet complete. We just want to go and set the departure and arrival. So you just want to click this button. So for our departure airport, it's OBBI, right? It knows that there is no SIDS. And we can confirm that here. No procedure for departure. That's okay. For departure, you always want to select your runway first. So which runway you want to go from. So in my case, that would be runway 12 left. So there is, you can use either the map from X-Plane or this planner. So we're going to taxi this way. Bravo or Alpha taxi, and we're going to line up to 12 left. We want to try to take the runway which is closest to our journey that way. I'm going to select 12 left. And then you want to select your SID, which is not there. You select it and execute. Go back to our departure and arrival index and now select your arrival. So we don't want to go back to Bahrain. We want to go to Doha. And here it has a lot of stars. You can go to next page and see a lot of these stars. So now it's a good time to explain you what is the SIDS and stars. Why do we need all this? So you can see we can choose procedures, and as I go over them you can actually see them, all the arrivals. And depending on where you're coming from, the east, west, north, south, there's lots of arrival procedures, which area you're coming from. The naming is basically from which last waypoint it starts. So it starts from the higher waypoint. And there are lots of variants of it. The Foxtrot, Hotel, Lima, Papa, Romeo, Victor. It depends on your aircraft type or your company restrictions or your airspace restriction. So for me, I'm just assuming I have to use the first one, that's the Foxtrot approach. Why do we need this? Well, long story short, it's just for delaying your arrival. So it's just delay vectors to help the ATC with aircraft traffic spacing, and at the end you get clearance. Probably even earlier you'll get clearance, like maybe over here you'll be like, okay, it's clear now, you can come. You reprogram your autopilot, do not follow the LNAV VNAV anymore, and you directly fly the appropriate heading mode and intercept the localizer that way. So we're going to talk about autopilot soon in the next episode. So in our case, we don't want the transition. We don't need the star. We don't need a SID. We're just going to go direct to higher and go direct to goal C. You select the star and then you select the runway to approach. ILS runway 16 right. And it's asking you, do you want to transition via vectors or do you want to transition via goal C? We don't need the vectors, we don't need the discontinuity here. We want to go through goal C. So I'm going to select goal C and execute that. So let's go back to a flight plan. And you notice we have way more than what we just programmed. It programmed it for you. So from goal C, it's telling you to go to Depla. And if you want to verify that, it's actually true. Depla is right here. And then from Depla, it's telling you to go to runway 16 right. And in case of a missed approach, it's going to be ATC vectors from wherever you want to go. And that's the end of our flight plan. And you also notice in the first page, our original runway is also filled in when we did the departure sequence. Our LNAV is completely ready. Now let's go to our climb phase. We are doing our VNAV, our vertical navigation. Our LNAV is complete. So our target speed is going to be 290, retaining our climb. And how much speed you want to take off. So 250, let's say at 250, we want to maintain that below 5,000. Enter it that way. Transition altitude is used for cabin pressure. We're gonna leave that as is and go to cruise section. At cruise, if I'm just gonna push it to the maximum operating speed, it's gonna burn a lot of fuel, and set that as our target speed, 340 knots, and our cruising altitude is 8,000 feet. Our descent Same thing, it already calculated our descent as well, so that's gonna be 255,000, and our vertical path angle or the glide slope should be, let's do 3, and it'll be mentioned in your navigation chats. The descent path is also complete, so once we are done with that, we are done with all the VNAV section as well. The direct intercept, when we are flying, we'll see in the autopilot how we can directly intercept a waypoint using this menu. And legs is the way you can change the waypoints, just the waypoints. Let's say you do want to go to Lubet, you can directly go to Haya. You can just click Haya, get it on the scratch pad, and click Lubet. You want to go to Haya directly from Jekshim, click like this, and it shows you the changes before you want to do it. And you can verify that using plan mode again and step through what you just did and execute it. But I don't want to do that. I just wanted to show you how you can go direct to the next point. And this would be our nav radios. We can set the ILS frequencies right here, or you could set your ILS frequency in this panel as well. And this is the VHF1, your radio frequency. We're going to talk about that when we do the landing. We put a lot of effort into this flight plan. We typed a lot of things, and we don't want to keep doing this again and again. What you can do is go to index, route menu, company route list, and actually put a name for your flight plan which you just made. So I'm going to just call it OBBI2, the same one I just did here. So I'm just going to use that. Once you have that name, you can just use this button, act store. It's going to say route saved. So if you make some mistakes, how do you fix that? Let's say you made a mistake here and there's no really an undo button where you want to reset the whole thing rather than turning off explain and turning on again. What you can do is just put an arbitrary airport, let's just say the destination, you put it to origin, and it resets the whole thing. It removes all the legs and everything. So that way you can practice, and it does take a while to get used to this and learn this, but over time, the more you practice, you will become better at it. I know first time I was doing this, it was like a hell nightmare for me. Over time, you'll be very comfortable with this. And that's how you can reset it. And as we saved that earlier flight plan, I'm just going to load that in. So you just type, so you can go either to index, route menu, company route list, and click this, or you can go to flight plan, OBBI to OTHH, and just press it into route. And that loads the flight plan right away. And that should be it. And just verify if you have any discontinuities up in the legs page, which we don't. That looks good. Alright, thank you for watching. Our flight plan is loaded and our FMC is programmed. In the next video, we're going to taxi, take off, and start playing with the autopilot. So I'll see you in the next video.